Welcome to Families for Life with Bryan and Brian, a podcast of Oak Hill Baptist Church.
On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about intentional living in the digital world.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Brian.
Hey, Brian, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm sipping some coffee and getting ready to talk about good stuff.
Excited to be here.
Yep.
And I'm really excited that we're getting into some more kind of practical things. This week, we're going to be looking at what do we as adults need to do practically in our lives to really think about and talk about the digital world and we've been looking at a lot of things, and this really just kind of brings it home.
Yeah.
And then next week is another real practical one too, right?
We're going to talk a little bit about how to set up practical steps to safeguard your children in their digital use. And
yes.
so really we're kind of thinking like this episode is about us, ourselves, our, adults or whoever's listening. I mean, if you're a student listening, then, just yourself, how can you help yourself in the digital world? And then the next episode is going to be about how we can help others and specifically children.
Yeah. What parents can do.
Yeah, exactly. Parents.
We have a sort of a theme verse for this chapter, and I thought this was really good. Ephesians 5:15 through 17. It says, "Look carefully how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is."
Yeah.
That's a really powerful verse, don't you think?
I love that verse. And it's funny because it's so simple. In some ways, it's literally like, hey, don't be dumb, be wise. And we can have wisdom from the Lord.
In all areas, but as we're thinking about it, we're thinking about the digital life, and we need to be wise as we walk into that, right?
Yep, that's right. We have to apply wisdom to every area of our lives. And this is a big area of our lives, so we must apply wisdom here too.
And I resonate with Paul here. The days are evil. It does seem like there's a lot of evil in the world, and people are sinful, and we know that people have a fallen sin nature. So we that are Christians, that are redeemed, have to really think carefully, how do we live in this world and not be consumed by it, but live for Christ and bring glory to God?
Yeah, and if we're not paying attention to this, we just have to understand, like, the enemy will use this against us. And that's why it's telling us to be wise, because you can't just go in this thinking that everything's going to be okay. The enemy is going to try to use this against you.
That's right.
So
yeah, I really like this quote they had in the book. It said, "You are not on this earth merely to live out a certain number of days and then die. You are here to accomplish a job that God has assigned you. God has a purpose, a plan, a destination for your life, but it will take great intent and discipline on your part to follow this plan." What do you think about that quote?
Yeah, that's an extremely good point that they're making. We often think that our life, I just recently taught a lesson for our Wednesday luncheon, and I was just thinking through, we walk into a room sometimes and we forget what we're doing in the room.
Sure.
Like, what am I even doing here? And it works like that in life sometimes. Like, what am I even doing here? Well, we have a job that we've been given, and it's to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And another quote that they had in the book was, "Unless you learn how to steward your technology, you may live with unfulfilled goals and dreams."
Right.
And if our goals and dreams are to glorify God, I don't want those things to go unfulfilled.
Right.
So what do you think? Any more to add on that?
Yeah, I think it's really a good reminder. We're not here to just soak up all of life's pleasures and all that life has to offer. We are here on a mission for the Lord. Of course, we do get to enjoy life, enjoy relationships with people, our family. I mean, all those things. But, there's a lot of things that you can waste time with.
Yeah.
John Piper even wrote a book, "Don't Waste Your Life," really targeted at young people, but it's applicable to everyone, that we really think about utilizing our time, leveraging our time to bring glory and honor to the Lord. And I think now more than ever, technology and the digital world impacts our life, and it can be a great time wasting aspect of our life.
Yeah. It can be a great time waster. It can be a great asset. You know, I mean, this is kind of one of the things that Jesus was talking about when he talks about the parable of the talents, where, you know, talents are given, and there are some people who are just super gifted at social media and digital use. Sure. And, you know, even here at the church, like there are certain people on staff who are really handy, like you, Brian. You use a lot of your giftedness to make the technology work, right? And so we work together. We use our talents for God's glory, though. The question is how are we spending our talents?
That's right. Yeah, I'll pay you for that compliment later. So
yeah, that was a previously agreed upon. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, it's interesting. They did have a quiz in here that helps us to kind of assess and take inventory. So I'm going to read these questions, and they really kind of hit home here. The first one was, do you text and drive? Then it was, do you get the urgent use to use your smartphone while talking to someone else? Do you ever feel like something hasn't really happened if you haven't posted it? Question number 4, does your family sit in the same room but not talk to each other because you are on your device? Number 5, does a ring or vibrating phone interrupt and take precedent over everything else in your life? And then number 6.
Yeah, number 6 is, do you lie about your internet or gaming use? Are you experiencing a loss of interest in activities you used to enjoy? Do you neglect yourself because, like, eating and sleeping because of time spent in the digital world? Do you feel anxious if you are offline for a period of time? And the 10th question is, do you ever think about how you could focus better in real life if these gadgets weren't invading your space?
So we're supposed to take each one of those questions and then score ourselves.
Yep, answer yes or no.
Of course, if you have 0, you're doing really well.
Right, so 0 yeses means you're doing good.
0 to 3 means you're doing well, but, you know, you may need to think about it. If you're 4 to, I think it was 4 to 7.
It's like 4 to 7, yeah.
You really need to think about your actions. And then 7 to 10 was you need to get help right now.
Yeah.
I took this and I was a 3.
Yep, I was also a 3.
Maybe a 3.5. No, I'm just kidding. But you know, and that does give me pause to think about. I won't say which 3, but I was a 3.
I know, same. Yeah, like to me, it's like some of these are like I don't want you to know which ones I said yes to.
And I have to really assess, and it is. When you sit down and you take assessment, it's like looking in a mirror.
That's right.
You know, and you really take stock of what's there. You cannot avoid it. You cannot. I mean, you could lie and fool yourself, but ultimately, if you're honest with yourself, it will help you to assess where you're at.
That's right. You can't take practical steps to help if you don't know where you're at.
Right.
And so that's why this quiz is really helpful to just take an inventory of your own life, where you're at. And if you've answered a lot of yeses to these questions, as you heard us reading them, don't run away from that. Run to Christ in that.
Right.
Because you might not necessarily be sinning, but these things can be, you might be. You might be in the way you use your time.
Right.
But there are practical steps that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we'll post this in the show notes.
Yeah.
And then you can take this quiz yourself and see where you fall in that as well.
Yeah. Well, there's some other questions that we can ask ourselves about our digital intake. They in our resource, in the Digital Invasion book, they were kind of talking about it being like a diet. And one of the things we need to think through is these questions. Is technology helping make my life easier, or is it making it harder? So as I'm intaking this stuff, what is it actually doing in my life? Is it making it easier or harder? Is all my searching and Googling and reading actually healthy for my life, or is it hindering my health? So what are some of these other ones?
Yeah, is technology helping me to connect on a deeper level with those I love? And then finally, is my time spent on entertainment being well managed? And again, these are assessment questions. You know, it was interesting. They talked about thinking about this in a way of like a diet,
dietary,
you know, like the pyramid of, you know, the old school pyramid. I don't even think they use
nutritional value pyramid.
But yeah, it was like fats and stuff are on top in the small, and then it went all the way down to like grains and bread. I think they've revised that because some of that thinking wasn't correct.
Yep.
But they had a pyramid in there, and a lot of times like social media or time wasting things are on the bottom of the pyramid, the biggest things that we do.
That's right.
And really thinking carefully about digital, utilizing in a good way is the smallest thing that we do, and taking time off and, being careful with it is what we don't do. And so we really need to flip that and consider how much of our time, how much of our digital diet is things like social media and things like that. I did know on my phone, and I think on your phone as well, there's a way. I have an Android phone and you have an iPhone. There's a way to go in there and see what your app usage is. And I'll be honest, it can be jarring because you look on there and it tells you how many hours a day you're on Facebook, Netflix.
It's not just how
Twitter.
much you're using the phone. It's like specific apps and different types of things. So you can see what you're actually doing.
Right.
And you're right. It can be a little bit like,
it's shocking how much it adds up, because you'll go in there and say, man, 2 hours on Facebook. I didn't spend 2 hours on Facebook, but combined throughout the entire day, out of a 24-hour period, 2 hours of your day were spent on Facebook.
Yep.
That's really crazy.
5 minutes here, 5 minutes there.
Just scrolling.
Yep. And that kind of just points out how natural it is for us to just jump in there. But that's why we've got to take inventory of this stuff, because we don't even recognize it, you know? And until we start paying it's like eating. It's like, actually, that's why they were talking about it this way. I mean, oftentimes you don't know how many calories you're eating a day until you start logging it. And then, as you and I know, Brian, because we've been talking about this and just trying to live healthier lifestyles, it's like you start taking inventory of what you're eating. It gets the number gets higher faster than you think.
Right.
And so we got to do that with our digital lives as well. And so some of these things are just thinking through how many hours we actually spend in specific digital areas.
Right.
There's a lot of different ways that we can spend our time in the digital world.
It could be video games. It could be chatting with Messenger, shopping, social media. It could be listening to podcasts like you're listening to this one right now.
This is a good one, though. No, I'm just kidding.
What else?
Yeah, there's reading news and blogs. I mean, that's a big deal, especially right now. Emailing.
Or fake news. No,
or fake, emailing. As you've mentioned, going down the Wikipedia rabbit hole. I mean, that's a real thing.
Yep.
YouTube is similar in that. You just video after video. And then obviously there's pornography. I mean, there's all these different things that people spend their time on. You got to know what you're spending your time on.
And we just have to ask ourselves, we go back to what we talked about at the beginning of the show. Are these things bringing glory and honor to the Lord? They're not. Some of these things are bad things, but many of them are not.
Right.
They're a part of life. They're things that we have to engage in. Many of us use technology for work every day.
Right.
And that's just a part of life. That's a part of what we do. But when we're not working, when we don't have to be on, why are we on all the time? And when we're on, are we bringing glory and honor to the Lord? Is there a better way we could utilize that time? Spending time with friends or family, or even alone with the Lord.
Yeah.
We got to think carefully about that. Are there opportunities that we could be reaching out to people and building relationships with lost people in our neighborhood or in our community? Could we volunteer? Could we serve?
Yep.
I mean, when you add up the hours and the days and the months and the years that we waste, it's really scary.
It is. And here's the thing, we might not recognize all that time that we're spending doing this stuff, but the Bible tells us clearly that God knows every thought that we have. And so he knows every thought we have. He knows every minute that we spend not glorifying him. And the great thing about God is that he's forgiven us for that.
Yes.
We don't have to live in a perpetual state of guilt and shame. So that's not what this is about. But it's about, if we have been transformed by the gospel, then we have a love for God. And if we love God, then don't we want to use our time that he's given us for him?
That's right.
It's like, we love our parents and they give us some money so we can buy presents for Christmas. And then you go and you buy them the presents, and that's kind of the way it works with the Lord. And so we've got to ask ourselves, what are some things we can do? So there are some initiatives that we can take.
Some practical things.
And the first thing we need to do is we've got to set some new digital goals. Like, what is our time usage? What are our goals? So I want to look at some of these things. We were talking about that triangle, that kind of pyramid, really, of time spent doing things, Brian. And if we had as our number one goal to be unplugged, that's our most time is spent unplugged from the digital world and really connected to real people in real life. That would be at the bottom. But there's ways we have to be in the digital world.
Right.
What things need to be next? What's the next thing that we should be spending most of our time
probably.
on?
I mean, you think about texting or emailing. Really, these are value things that people are going to place whatever value on.
Yeah, it's going to depend.
But
be different
we want to message people and keep up contact. And sometimes you message people because you have to.
Mm-hmm.
You text them because you have to, or because you just want to.
Right.
I'll be watching a game sometimes, and I'll text one of my friends when I see an awesome play, or just to razz them because my team's beating their team or something like that. So that's fun stuff to do, and that does help us connect. But then there's videos and movies, and with the advent of we thought it was bad with cable TV where you could just watch cable 24/7. It's really bad now because it's on demand.
Yeah.
And binge watching is really a problem. Now, listen, if you are excited about a show and you and your family or you and your wife are like, hey, we're gonna knock out several episodes, and that's something fun you want to do together. I'm not saying that you don't ever do that, but if our norm is to just binge shows all the time and we are just watching and watching and watching, you go from one show to the next show to the next show to the next show, then we got to really think about that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, again, these are really more like priorities, and the question is, like, we always think like this is my higher priority, but the thing is, how much time you actually spend on your quote priority.
Right.
It's not really a priority if you're spending way more time on something else. And so if our priority is to be unplugged and interacting with real people, and then like texting, I think texting and emailing makes sense because like that's what we do for work. Mm-hmm. I mean, people have to text and email all the time for work. That's just a normal part of life now. But then videos and movies, you think of one movie, like nowadays it's 2.5 hours for a, decently long movie. 2.5 hours out of the day. Right. How many movies do you need to watch every day?
Well, and I'll clap back a little bit.
Yeah, no, please.
You like my phrasing there?
Yeah.
I mean, even for sports people, I think people would say, well, you sit down and watch a game and that's 3 hours,
Sure.
And I think that's
I know where you're going with this.
That too is a realistic complaint as well. If we're spending all of our time, you can waste time with anything, watching sports, watching movies. I mean, all of these types of things, we have to just keep it in balance. Yes. And I think once again, I want to advocate for this. Balance is huge key in life to be able to honor the Lord and enjoy life and do, all the things he's called us to do. We have to have balance. Amen. We cannot run to one extreme or the other. We have to live our lives for him according to the word. And then try to think, yes, I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to do these types of things, but they're not going to consume me.
Right. And that's the thing. We just got to be paying attention to what we're actually doing versus what we want to be doing for the Lord.
Right.
And I know that for me was one thing that, just over the last few years, I've really just had to take inventory for myself. Like, am I doing the things that I say that I want to do? Mm-hmm. Am I actually living the life that I say I want to live?
Right.
Or am I letting these other things just rob me of what God wants me to do and really the joy that I can have doing all these other things, being with all these other people, and then still doing, watching movies and, being on social. And that's, so social media is another big one.
Yeah, that's the next one. And it is, social media needs to, we have about 10 plus years of really good data now on social media. And there's not a lot of good stuff to say about it.
Yeah.
And in fact,
unfortunately,
during this election cycle, I might just get off social media for a while. It's ridiculous. Really I can't even stand it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. It's like, does this need to be one of the pillars and foundations of our life?
Right.
On an ongoing basis?
No.
I don't know. I'm not convinced.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we need to get rid of it altogether. it started, especially Facebook. I mean, it started as a way to connect with friends and, and a way to display pictures to grandparents and things like that. But it's morphed and changed, and it's something different now.
Well, and that's the thing. It doesn't have to be that for us.
Right.
You know, like that's what we have to say. Like, what is this going to be for me?
Right.
Like other people might do these things, and you know, God has given people the freedom to do what they will. I mean, God allows people to sin.
Right.
He lets them do it. They're accountable for it, but I don't have to do that.
Right. Right.
And
listen,
so,
I'll tell you, the snooze button on Facebook
Yeah.
is a godsend, because if you've been posting nonstop political stuff, you're probably snoozed on my feed right now, because I just can't handle it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to just respond to everything, and I don't just want to say a bunch of stuff the way I feel or whatever. So I literally put snooze for 30 days, and I don't see that person's post for 30 days.
And you know, some people might be totally fine with all of that, and that's fine. But the point we're trying to make here is like, there are real ways that you can help yourself control yourself.
Right.
You know, when it comes to these things, like I've turned off notifications for certain apps because I don't want to just immediately be involved.
Right.
I want to look at it when I want to look at it.
Well, you were trained, as soon as your phone dings, you got to look at
Right.
it. Right.
Yeah. So you turn that off so that you don't feel that temptation.
And the last one is games. Now, again, I want to be careful, because a gamer might say, well, somebody spends 3 hours watching a baseball game or watching a movie. I'm playing a video game for the same amount of time. Whatever your hobbies are fine. I don't care if video gaming is one of your hobbies.
That's great.
I love video games. I'm more of an old school video game guy. I've not played
Like
much
Pong
of the new
or
stuff.
something?
Yeah, Pong.
Anyways.
No, like Nintendo.
Okay.
Super Nintendo.
Okay, respect. Okay.
Nintendo 64.
Respect.
But, I'm not going to hate on somebody because they're playing video games. They just, once again, we have to control. And have you ever sat down and played a video game and 1 hour goes by, and you're like, I'm just going to play for 5 more minutes.
Yeah. And then
one more
hour
level,
goes by.
one more round. And then another hour goes by. Well, just one more level, and another hour goes by. So, I mean, that's where the trap happens. Right. And that happens with anything. One more episode, one more scroll, one more app I got to check, you know? And anytime we're saying one more or more time, I think that should be a red flag that ding, something is wrong.
That's right. So we're just paying attention to these things and then setting these new goals. Once you have your goals, once you know what you're actually trying to achieve here, you know where you're at, you know kind of the things that you want to change, you set your goals, then there are boundaries that you have to set to keep you within kind of your parameters.
Yeah, the author of this book, the authors of this book gave some boundaries, some things that they use in their life. And I think they're very wise and very helpful.
Oh, yeah. So they put in the quote, Proverbs 25:28, like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control.
Yes.
And their point is, if we don't set up boundaries, then we're really, we don't have safeguards. We lack self-control, and we are setting ourselves up for ruin.
There's no a city that doesn't have walls has no protection. People come in and out. There's just no discipline, no anything. And so, that's how we're like if we don't have self-control. We've got to have walls or boundaries up to help us navigate this. So the first one, and I actually really like this one, don't check your phone until after your morning devotion.
Yep.
Get up in the morning a little bit early, get your coffee, sit down, maybe read a little bit of scripture, spend some prayer time, and don't look at your phone. I know for me, the moment I look at my phone, there's an email or there's a text or there's something that somebody has sent me, and then boom, I'm off to the races and my day has started.
Yep. And that's the thing is like, don't start your day too soon, get up early so that you can really just move into the day, but don't just jump right into your work or whatever, your busyness. And I'll say this for those, especially I'm thinking of like, maybe stay-at-home moms or people who don't really just do well with morning devotions. I love morning devotions. I know you do too, Brian. But if that's not your thing, I've talked with other people about how it's like, just don't get on your phone before wait an hour
Yeah.
after you wake up.
Sure.
Maybe you do your devotions during the middle of the day. Maybe you do it at night. But it's just not helpful when you start your day on your cell phone. Because like you said, you just immediately get kind of sucked into this busyness that takes over. So the second one is to try and end the digital day by 9 p.m.
Yeah, try to put that away, put your phone away, and leave it. I think they even said to put the phone somewhere else if you can.
Yeah, I think that might be in this list. I know it's in another one too. But yeah, the point is really put your phone away at least an hour before you're going to go to bed.
Right. Yeah, number 3, don't check your phone when having lunch or dinner with a friend. Or, I would even put family.
Right.
Really, make that person a priority. Don't, just even like leave the phone in the car if you can, if you're able to do that.
Yeah, some people are. I don't know about you, but yeah,
I don't know about you, but when you're with someone and they're constantly checking their phone, you just feel like, why am I even here?
Yep. And I've even caught myself just doing that and being like, oh man, I'm not caring about this person right now.
Right. Yeah. Do a digital fast, maybe once a week or every month. That's number 4.
Yeah, they're pretty adamant about that, and they have pretty good research to show that really helps. So that's something we need to think about. And then the 5th one is not to have any digital gadgets at mealtime. So that kind of goes to like the family dinner times, or any times you're just kind of eating food together. That should really be a time of fellowship.
Right. Put the phone away.
Yeah.
Right.
The Bible's pretty clear about meal times. The Bible has a lot to say about fellowshipping over food.
Yeah. My kids get really annoyed with me because I'll go around. Some of them do. Some of them are excited, but I go around the table and how was your day?
Yeah.
What'd you do? Stuff like that. And they're usually like, fine.
Yeah.
Nothing, school, but we try and attempt to have a conversation. And if they do say something, I'll try to key in on something that they've said and try to have a conversation about
just an intentional, just trying is what matters.
Yeah. And then limit checking emails or texts maybe to once an hour. There are some apps that can help with this. If you look on the App Store, there are some self-control apps or some things. If you really have a problem with this, checking your phone, there are some things that will help you. They market them as productivity apps. So if you're working and you need an hour where, and you don't want to get distracted, you can lock your phone for an hour or something.
That's the thing about this, is
lock
like
certain apps.
You might be thinking you're getting a lot done, but really you're actually keeping yourself from getting things done, because you're constantly checking and looking, and it keeps you from achieving goals at the time. So another thing is to try not to talk on the phone to virtual people when real people are right in front of you. So real people take precedence over the digital people.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that if somebody needs to talk to you, there are times where it makes sense. Like when my wife calls me, there's very few times where I'm not going to answer the phone.
Right, of course.
But the point is to say, we want to make sure that people we are talking to realize that we value them and their time.
Right.
And answering our phone all the time and talking to people on the phone while we're around other people doesn't really communicate that.
Right. And I'll say this, and I know kids today, they say kind of a stereotype, they hate to use the actual phone to make phone calls. They'd rather text or message.
Well,
or something.
Nowadays it's FaceTiming. But anyways.
Okay. Well, that's great. FaceTiming is better than just texting.
Yeah.
At least you're trying to have a relationship and seeing people. I like calling people on the phone rather than texting.
Right.
Just because I can have more of a relationship with them that way.
Yeah. Well, the more complicated the conversation, the more personal it needs to be. So if you're just saying, hey, texting's fine. If you're having to communicate something, phone is fine. But if you have a serious conversation you need to have, it probably needs to be face to face.
Right. That's right. We need to take the time to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, pray daily to the Lord to ask him to help us with this. We cannot underestimate the Lord's, if we desire to have control in our lives, the Lord's going to help us with that. Once again, a spiritual discipline, a spiritual fruit of walking in the Lord, walking in the gospel is self-control.
Yeah,
and so God wants to help us with that. So spend time praying. Remember the Bible says in James, if you lack wisdom, ask God.
Yep.
Right?
That's right. Yeah, you're getting ready to preach on prayer. So
that's right.
It's kind of a big deal, right?
That's this Sunday.
Yeah. Well, actually,
I
guess
get convicted about your prayer life.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just kidding.
Well, I guess our listeners will hear this after. So
won't they?
Yeah. Well, hopefully you have
you
heard
can find that
the message
on our Oak Hill website.
Yeah, that's right.
Check out that out.
Yeah, it won't be. It'll be really encouraging. I'm expecting it to be.
I think so. I hope
be.
so.
Yeah. So those are the digital boundaries that we need to set. Those are some things like if you just say I'm gonna set these boundaries up, I'm gonna follow these guidelines, it will automatically make you feel much more relieved from this digital world.
Yeah. So let's talk about steps towards digital well-being.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just like we would say things for living a healthy life, we need to say things about living a healthy digital life. You know, we'd say, hey, you need to eat well, you need to exercise, you need to sleep, you know, drink plenty of water. I mean, we all know these things, right?
Yeah.
What about things for digital well-being?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, I mean, and this is so common sense, but man, it really hit me. Think twice before you post.
Right.
And I honestly, through, since we've been doing this, I've even made like several different documents where I just write things that I want to post, but then I don't post it.
That's a good idea.
And I wait and I look at it later. And there's been times where I've deleted things I've written and been like, no, I'm really glad I didn't post that.
Yeah. There's no reason you have to immediately post something right away. That's a good idea, is to write it and think about it before, because if you're in the heat of the moment, a lot of things sound good, but then when the passion and the emotions kind of wash away, it's like, man, that's not helpful to my spiritual growth, or it's not encouraging to somebody else.
Yeah.
Another thing, we talked about this already before, but share your password with your spouse or an accountability partner. Make sure that they have open access to your accounts and your social media, email, whatever, so that there's nothing to hide there. And it just helps you. It keeps you accountable. It helps you. If there is any temptation, you're able to squash it before it becomes sin.
Right. And that's super important. The third thing is to take a digital fast. And again, this is why I say, this is from our resource, and they really
a digital
think it's
fast,
valuable.
A digital fast is abstaining from digital things as much as possible. You know, of course, we may have to go to work or whatever, but digital things in our life that we don't have to, like social media or whatever.
Like you might be at work and you answering emails and stuff, but maybe you limit yourself only to your computer instead of your phone, right? And that way you're really just disconnecting yourself to a pretty big extent.
Yeah, they said even a 24-hour digital fast can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know, I find it interesting. You know, the Bible talks a lot about fasting, and a lot of times it's geared towards food.
Yeah.
And instead, you would fast from meals or fast for a day or something like that. And it would be a period of time where instead of eating, you would replace that with prayer and Bible study.
Yep.
And so a great thing would be, instead of digital things, you replace that with some spiritually focused things. And I think that makes a huge difference in our lives.
I totally agree. And so really consider this, honestly, before this whole, study, this series that we've been doing, I personally have not been very like, fasting is good. But then, we talk about our retreats and all these other things. And every time I've been away from my phone for an extended period of time, I've always come away like just closer to the Lord, honestly. So anyway, another thing is to practice what they call presence. And this is kind of a rehash, just the idea of being with the people you are with.
Right.
But so that's a boundary, but it's also something that's healthy and good for you.
Yeah.
So,
and then also we need to evaluate if we really need a new device before buying it. And see, there's a trap now. If you ever notice the cycle, there's a new something that comes out that we have to have. And it's not always a phone. It could be a smartwatch.
Yep.
It could be
some kind of charging device or something.
Yeah, it could be that thing that you put in your shoes to track your steps and whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of things. There's always a new digital something on the horizon now, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so it's really a trap that can oh, I need this. I need this. I need this.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, yes, maybe. Sometimes things help and make life easier, but not all the time.
Right.
And so we really need to evaluate what that is. And then number 6, we need to spend as much time in real life as you can.
Yeah.
Get out of the virtual world, hang out with your family, go outside, read a book,
Yep.
do things that don't involve the digital world. I think it gives us a greater appreciation for life and for really God's world that he's created.
Yeah, I mean, if all you're doing is seeing pictures of I like to follow different pages that have beautiful pictures of wonderful landscapes, and that's great. But if all I'm doing is looking at those pictures and that doesn't drive me to want to go and see it myself, then I don't think it's actually doing what it's there for.
Right.
It's really to encourage me to go live real life, and to get out and to do things for real. And so that's what we want to do. We just have to actually do it.
Right.
We have to make plans and execute those plans.
A couple more things really quick. We need to model good digital stewardship to our family. Sleep with your phones out of your room or on silent. We mentioned that. Daily cultivate your God space. Now, we're going to talk about this in 2 weeks, so we don't want to give it away. But what is our God space? So we'll leave you on a cliffhanger there.
Yeah, but it's going to be obviously pretty important. And then the last thing is to just set apart your tech, to sanctify your technology, the digital world, your use for God's glory,
right?
Not your own. Like,
that's big.
Our posts are about God and glorifying him and what he's doing in our lives, not about how awesome we are.
That's right. Yeah. And we got to understand that, especially as parents, we have influence over our children. They see us, they watch us. We've got to really think about this stuff. We've got to really think, what are we modeling? Of course, next week we want to talk about specifically what you can do as a parent. But the first thing is really to assess yourself. Where are you at? Think about these things. Assess your time, what you're doing in digital space, why you're doing it. And then you can maybe set up some of these boundaries. Think about your digital well-being, just like you would your health. Are you maintaining a healthy digital life?
That's right. And that's another thing is that I really think it's super important that if you are having a problem and this is something that you're not able to, now that if you're listening to this and you're like thinking about it, but you're finding yourself really struggling to have self-control in this area, man, go talk to somebody about it.
Right.
Don't do this by yourself. That is not going to work.
Right.
Come grab us. If you go to our church, find somebody that you trust that you can talk to about this so that you can really have victory in this area of your life.
That's right.
So, but that's the thing. Just open your eyes to your own digital use and its actual effect in your life. You want to own those problems. If you've got problems, just own those problems and repent. And then start taking these steps that you need to take in order to actually see some change and ask God to bless all of these efforts for his glory.
That's really good.
Yeah, he'll bless it. He'll make it happen.
That's right. Yeah. Well, this was really challenging and also it was encouraging and challenging for me in my life.
Likewise.
So,
yeah, well, I hope our listeners are being encouraged and also challenged and we really want this to be helpful for everybody who hears this. So, if you're listening, man, make sure you share this, let people know about it so that if there's people who need to hear it, they'll hear it.
Yep. So that's all we got for today.
That's it.
Hey, we'll see you next time. I hear you slurping.
Well, as I was saying in my last point,
and I'm gonna murder you. As long as you don't go.
that makes for a good commercial.
Yeah, that makes me want to kill people.
Does it really?
Yeah.
That's your pet peeve. That's hilarious.
Although I like to chew ice, and my wife wants to kill me when I chew ice.
Yep.
She really hates it.
I like chewing ice too.
She hates it. I hear that if you like to chew ice, you have an iron deficiency. I don't know if that's true or not, but
dude, I pump so much iron. That's definitely I got you. That was good.
Oh my God. Wow.